It's 5 o'clock p.m. here in Seoul. Thanks for tuning in to Arirang News. I'm Devin Whiting. Voters are going to the polls today for by-elections to choose the mayors of South Korea's two biggest cities, the capital Seoul and the southeastern city of Busan. With more, our Kim Do-yeon is standing by at a polling station in Seoul. Do-yeon.
Devin, since 6 a.m., there's been a steady inflow of people turning out to vote here in Dongjaku District in Seoul. Now, as you have mentioned, today's elections will decide who will fill the vacant mayorships of the two largest cities in the country. Besides those posts, there are 19 others to be filled across the country, so today, more than 12 million people are eligible to vote. As of 4 p.m., more than 47% of those in Seoul have cast their ballots, and in Busan, more than 42%. That's not as high as the same point in the local elections in 2018 or the general election of 2020. But early voting last weekend in Seoul and Busan did hit a record high for a by-election at 20.5%. One thing to note is that unlike a general election or presidential election, it's not a public holiday, so people will have to go back to work after voting or vote after work since the polls are open until 8 p.m. Also, you can only vote at your designated polling station near your registered address, unlike early voting where you can cast a ballot at any of them. As for COVID-19 prevention, it's not the first time that the voters have cast ballots in the pandemic. A year ago, last April, the country held a general election. So the preventive measures such as distancing, temperature checks, and the wearing of gloves will be familiar.
Now, as you say, Do-yeon, this isn't the first election in the pandemic, but case numbers are seeing a significant rise right now. Do you think that's putting off some voters from taking part?
Devin, actually, it seems like choosing the next mayor is more important to the voters even than the threat of COVID-19. And this being the second time Seoulites have voted, knowing what precautions they need to take, it seemed like, at least the ones that I talked to, they weren't too concerned.
I think this transcends the threat of COVID-19. My ballot will be a part of electing a new mayor, so he or she can start working as soon as possible for the city.
I'm now a college student, but with classes going online, I've had a lot more time. So I looked into the news and saw that there are some issues on which people really needed to make their voices heard. So although I know my one vote is small, I think it says a lot.
As mentioned, voting will continue until 8 p.m. and later on, we'll learn who will be the new mayors of South Korea's two biggest cities. That's all I have for now. Back to you, Devin.
All right, Kim Do-yeon reporting there. Thank you for that, and we'll look forward to those results. Now, the latest on the coronavirus situation. South Korea on Wednesday reported more than 600 new cases, the most since January. Experts are concerned this could be the start of a new wave, so to stop it, they're urging people to avoid unnecessary meetings, and they're ramping up testing. Jang Tae-hyun reports.
South Korean health experts say that the country is on the edge of entering a fourth wave of COVID-19 after recording 668 cases on Wednesday. This is the highest number of cases in 89 days when cases were falling after the peak of the third wave. Experts say that without additional virus prevention measures, the country could see more than 2,000 cases a day. Health authorities are making sure there are enough hospital beds to deal with such a surge in cases. And to slow the spread, Prime Minister Chung Se-kyun at a meeting on Wednesday said the government will ramp up testing.
We used to offer free COVID-19 tests depending on the social distancing level or symptoms. From now on, we'll let people get free tests at all testing centers across the country.
Health authorities will soon send an official paper to local governments saying when testing will be free for anybody. And as experts warn that this could be the start of another wave of the virus, authorities are advising people to keep alert about the situation.
Please cancel unnecessary meetings and meet fewer people. There are infections from various daily spaces and the virus is spreading all over the country. It's hard to find a place where it's safe from COVID-19.
Health authorities on Friday will announce any possible changes in the distancing measures for next week. More than 100 people in the country are severely ill from the virus, and with 4 additional fatalities reported on Wednesday, the death toll stands at over 1,700. More than 1 million people in South Korea have so far received their first shot of the vaccine. 장태현, Arirang News.
And South Korea has given final approval for the use of the COVID-19 vaccine developed by Janssen, a subsidiary of Johnson & Johnson. The Food and Drug Safety Ministry made the announcement on Wednesday, meaning South Korea now has 3 vaccines approved. The Janssen product is a viral vector vaccine given in 1 dose, and in trials it's shown an efficacy rate of 68.9%. It'll be used for people 18 and older. Once the doses are delivered, they'll be stored at between -25 degrees and -15 degrees Celsius for up to 24 months. South Korea has signed a deal to get doses for up to 6 million people, which are scheduled for rollout in the 3rd quarter of this year. The South Korean presidential office is going to hold a series of meetings with the representatives of the business sector to address some of the issues they face and to provide support. President Moon Jae-in's chief of staff for policy, Lee Ho-seung, was due to start the consultations today with visits to the Korea Chamber of Commerce and Industry and the Korea Federation of SMEs. On Thursday, he'll sit down with officials from the Korea Employers Federation and the Federation of Middle Market Enterprises. They'll discuss stepping up public-private cooperation. On top of that, they'll discuss the Korea New Deal initiative, the country's push for carbon neutrality and deregulation. The International Monetary Fund has raised its forecast for global GDP growth this year, largely on the expected recovery in the United States. But it also says that this growth will hinge on countries working together to stop the virus. Seo In-kyung reports.
In the World Economy Outlook released yesterday, the IMF expects a 6% increase, up 0.5 percentage points from January. The U.S. fiscal stimulus and vaccine distribution have made it revise up its previous forecast. As for South Korea, the international body estimated growth of 3.6%, up from the previous 3.1%. A rebound in exports and supplementary budget have contributed to the adjustment. Considering the scale of GDP in 2019 as 100, Korea's expected economic growth this year will be 102.6, exceeding the pre-pandemic level. Out of G20 countries, Korea, US, and Australia were the only nations whose 2021 economic growth is projected to surpass that of 2019. Supported by the improved GDP number of the US, the IMF has upgraded the economic outlook for advanced economies. The number was revised from 4.3% to 5.1%, up 0.8 percentage points. It has also raised the forecast for emerging and developing countries' growth to 6.7%, with India expanding by as much as 12.5%. However, the IMF warned that future developments would depend on the recovery speed across and within countries and the possible economic fallout from the health crisis. Along with this warning, the international body stressed that international cooperation is needed for the universal distribution of vaccines at affordable prices. It added that cooperation is vital to achieving projected growth and narrowing the gap in living standards between low-income and high-income countries. Seo In-kyung, Arirang News.
South Korean tech giants Samsung Electronics and LG Electronics have beaten market expectations with their earnings for the 1st quarter. Samsung estimates a rise in operating profit of 44% from a year earlier. And LG says it expects its best 1st quarter on record. Kim Jae-hee has this report.
Samsung Electronics and LG Electronics have forecast better than expected earnings for the 1st quarter of this year. According to Samsung Electronics' earnings guidance announced on Wednesday, the company estimated its 1st quarter operating profit at around $8.3 billion, up more than 44% on year. Projected sales were also some 17% higher on year, reaching about $58.2 billion. An expert notes this was largely due to strong sales of smartphones, premium TVs, and home appliances amid the prolonged COVID-19 pandemic, which offset weaker than expected chip sales.
Samsung semiconductor business has shown weaker performance in the first quarter due to the temporary shutdown of Samsung's chip plant in Austin, Texas, following a power outage caused by a winter storm. But its mobile business did well, with robust sales of Galaxy S21 smartphones and increased margins from home appliances contributed to the overall improvement of first quarter earnings.
Another analyst says Samsung Electronics earnings could further improve in the second quarter.
Memory chip prices are rising, and with the improved situation regarding the Austin plant, Samsung Electronics semiconductor performance is likely to recover in the second quarter. Although the smartphone business is expected to weaken, we expect the company's overall operating profit in the second quarter to be better than that of the first quarter, reaching about $9 billion.
LG Electronics also said on Wednesday that it expects its best ever quarterly earnings in the first quarter of this year. Its operating profit is expected to reach roughly $1.3 billion, up about 39% on year. And sales are forecast to reach some $16.8 billion, up almost 28% on year. This was largely thanks to solid sales of TVs and home appliances, despite poor performance in the mobile sector. LG Electronics earnings are also widely expected to further improve in the future, with its mobile division shutting down from the end of July. Detailed earnings for both companies are expected to be released later this month. Kim Jae-hee, Arirang News.
And that brings us to the end of this newscast. Thank you for watching. More live news coming your way at 7 p.m. Korea time.